What's the best country in the world? Well, obviously, it's Russia. Of course, it's the biggest, it's the best, it's the righteous. It's the best people in the world who live in Russia. Russians. Kind, loving, peaceful, full of empathy, full of mercy, full of forgiveness. Russia has never in its history, never ever attacked any other nation, but was attacked by others many, many times and was forced to defend itself. Yes, Russia has the strongest military in the world, the mightiest military, the most advanced, but it's only for defensive purposes, never to invade or never to attack anyone. Russia has become the beacon of light to all the countries in the world because it's the last standing pillar of righteousness, of family values. But sky is not so blue. In and around Russia, it's not cloudless. There are nations, countries, and people who are very envious of Russia, who are envious of its might and advancements and righteousness. They envy Russia's greatness. They want to bring Russia down. Predecessor of Russia, the USSR, was a fantastically great country created by the likes of Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin. It was great. It was mighty. It provided equality. It provided good environment for working class people. Everyone was treated equally. There was democracy in the USSR, and some people consider that the demise of the USSR was the biggest tragedy of the 20th century, bigger than World War II, bigger than World War I, the biggest one, the demise of the USSR. And of course, the bad people brought the USSR down. The West, led by sly, evil, no good Americans. Russia now is the successor of the USSR. And it's also great. But same evil, no good, envious people are trying to bring Russia down. Yes, collective West, obviously, led by the evil Americans. They are set to destroy the pillar of light. And you know what? Russian family values are under direct threat. Howdy, everyone. Welcome to Sunday. This is Inside Russia, and my name is Konstantin. I'm streaming live, giving you updates, news, developments, my takes and opinions on what is happening in Russia. Usual Russia explained by the unusual Russian. What I just told you, I heard that story before, many, many times. I heard that story back in the USSR in school. I heard that story in the 90s. Well, in the USSR, it was official propaganda. In the 90s, I heard it from many people who were feeling terrible about the demise of their country, the country they had spent all their lives at, and they couldn't adapt to the new country that was born, the new Russia. Therefore, they didn't want to admit that the demise of the USSR was brought by own people and own government. They needed to someone blame. They simply felt better. But it was not official stand of Russian government. It was more of a kitchen talks. And so I heard that story thousands of times. I did not hear it from 2000 to 2000, 2011, I would say, 2012. Simply because that story became useless, groundless. Russia was doing really good financially, economically, and people were actually doing really good. They were riding the wave of wealth. And when you're wealthy, when you're happy, when you're satisfied with your life, you simply stop blaming others because you have nothing to blame them for. So, therefore, the West in Europe, they become the friends. They became the friends. They became partners, partners in a good way. They became close allies. And Russia was actually looking forward to more close integration with those countries, with the United States and with Europe. You know what the goals of Russian government were back then? And I'm talking 2005, 6, 7, 8, up till 2012, up till the third term of Vladimir Putin. Integration, free trade. Russia finally became WTO organization member. Visa-free travel with Europe. It was the biggest agenda for Russian politicians 15 years ago. It was a sign of Russia being accepted as an equal member, and there had been talks for years, and they were visa-free travel, goals being met on the horizon because the countries were making progress. Believe it or not, it was not too long ago, 10, 11, 12 years ago. So Russia was not a threat to anybody, and Russia did not have any threats. We didn't have any enemies back then. They were bad countries, but they were terrorist countries, dictatorship countries like North Korea, obviously. Not too many more. But even them, they weren't enemies. They were just like, black sheep, so to speak. Well, things started changing. By the way, during those times, we didn't really hear about family values, and Russians have exceptional family values. Russia being beacon of light in terms of Christian world, Eastern Orthodox world, Russian world, family values. No, Russia was just an equal partner among other countries of international community. Plain and simple, it was enough for us to satisfy the people, to satisfy the government. But then things started changing. From friends, the West and the United States became partners and competitors. And not enemies, but first competitors. And of course, if you compete with someone, your competitor wants to put own interests on top of yours. So it was cautious attitude. It's relationship towards the West and the United States started changing towards being more cautious. And of course, later, after 2014, it turned into enemies. First, hidden enemies, they were called partners, and everyone, Vladimir Putin started this trend, and everyone kind of picked up. When they were saying partners, they meant not partners, so they were like our partners in the West. And of course, lately, in the past years, partners, forgotten, became full-blown enemies. The West, the USA, the NATO, out to destroy us. Forces of darkness, forces of evil, that type of thing. That's what you, my friends, are portrayed as in Russia right now. Well, a number of areas were introduced as targets. This is how any propaganda works. If you start telling people, if you start selling them idea that the West wants to destroy Russia, it's really hard to believe because the idea is too general. What do you mean they want to destroy us? How? Well, then you're gonna take something and explain in details. For example, the West wants to destroy our economy. It wants to destroy our agriculture. It wants to do this, and that. So our crop yield is greatly reduced and we start starving and our children start starving in 5 years. That is much more believable, much easier to sell. Same about the economy. The West, the USA wants to destroy our economy. It wants to do this, sanctions, isolation, press the partners, threaten China to turn away from Russia. Do this simple actions. So Russian economy is damaged, hurt, is blown, Then it's much easier to sell. Well, the West wants to destroy they want to destroy our military. They want to, steal our technologies, build better ones, make ours obsolete. They want to put spies. They want to do this and that, so we become defenseless. That's much easier to believe. And sovereignty, there's another area. The West wants to destroy our sovereignty. It wants to do things. It wants to send people inside Russia to blow like special agents of influence. So they turn Russians and they create a revolution inside. And the revolution breaks Russia into different parts. It's easy to buy, easy to sell for the government, easy to buy for the people. And one of the areas is family values. Family values is not so precise because it's more of a general term. I mean, what can you do with family values? Family values is something domestic that is grown here in the country, is not given to you from abroad, right? Well, wrong. The thing is, now what's been happening, those areas of focal points of propaganda, they are being exhausted. For example, the economy. If you are told one thing, that the Western countries want to destroy your economy, but then you walk out of the door of your own home or apartment and you see things with your own eyes, you see the corruption, not the Americans come and then, getting corrupted, but your own Russian neighbors, your own Russian businesses, local businesses, you see that things are being stolen, government money being stolen. You see that new laws created that actually pressure business, and business closes down. When you see it with your own eyes, it's really hard to sell you the idea that the West wants to destroy the economy, okay? Same thing with sovereignty. Same thing with military. I mean, my God, military. This is the biggest myth that has been busted in the Russian history, right? Not the Americans, not the West infiltrated the army, but Vladimir Putin himself many times emphasized Russia's biggest problem. He said corruption. Corruption it's a derivative from the economic and social system that is in place in Russia. It's called the vertical of power. Okay, that was created by Vladimir Putin himself and his friends and his, assistants, the government officials, the government. The vertical of power creates corruption, and corruption destroys Russian economy, destroys army from the inside. That's the problem. So now the last pillar, the last thing, the last area that they can sell to people is family values. Well, what is Russian family values? Russians historically are family people. We value families very much. Families are everything to us, at least to a lot of us. Older people more so, younger people less so, but still, the culture of Russia, family, strong family, is a part of it, a great part of it. Okay. Although lately things have been changing, and Russia ranks among top countries by divorce according to United Nations statistics. By the UN statistics, more than every second family in Russia divorces. That's insane. Okay, but still, family values are present here. Um, what can they sell us in terms of family values? They This is the last thing they're holding on to, the last great thing. Okay, that thing can be targeted inside of Russian people's heads. Okay, once this myth about the army is gone, mobilization is announced, and economy is in ruins. You don't have much to eat. Well, you have plenty of to buy, but you don't have much money to buy it with. Things like that. There are few jobs available. That's one thing. But the family is something that's deep inside. That's the last thing to go, so to speak. So they are trying to sell us that Russia is the last pillar of traditional families, and the West, of course, led by the United States, has conspired to force LGBT culture, infiltrate Russia with it, and destroy Russian values from within. It doesn't matter that more than every second family in Russia ends up in divorce. That just tells you about the current state of the values. It doesn't matter. It's out of the picture. I have not heard of Russian statistics. It exists, of course, but they don't talk about this, okay? And that's what they need to target first. But no, they are trying to keep Russia LGBT free. How? By enforcing, well, by creating laws. The first law was introduced and created in 2011, I believe, or 2012. And it was fairly harmless law that banned advertisement of LGBT for young kids. Okay, the logic of the government was this. The kids must be free of any influence, including influence of like gender change and LGBT and so forth. And this is something I agree with because I think that they're fairly simple. I think that my children must be raised by me and my wife because they're my children. This is my family, and this is my responsibility. First of all, it's responsibility before God, because I believe that children are a gift of God. And it's my responsibility in front of my parents, because they're grandparents to my kids and parents of my wife. And this is my responsibility before my wife, in front of, to my wife, because she's my second half. So nothing else, no one else, not my neighbors, not the government, not, no one needs to influence my kids one way or another. 100% parents' job, okay? So that law went past us. Most of us in Russia, we didn't even notice it. It just existed on the paper. It didn't change much because there was not much of a propaganda of LGBT in Russia back then for children. I didn't see any, at least. So why didn't, They just made a law. Perhaps we made a mistakes. Perhaps we should have seen that thing differently back then. Okay, and I think, not perhaps, I think we made a mistake. I made personal mistake by passing that law. I should have looked closely into it, and I should have seen where it would lead us to, okay? But what happened, happened. So anyway, then when this whole tragedy, whole mess, whole just tragedy of cosmic scale started happening in Ukraine, Russia attacked Ukraine, Vladimir Putin claimed personal responsibility and so forth, they literally started coming up with new ideas to propagate. And a lot of ideas that they did, they just got busted. Denazification, demilitarization. Everyone understands there's no Nazis in Ukraine, okay? Defending people of Donbass. Busted, because Russia grabbed land. Spreading Russian world. Russia gets in, gets new land of Ukraine, gets to Kherson, Zaporizhia, and stays there for good, never will leave and never will leave anyone behind. 5 weeks later, it leaves behind. Busted, okay? So they need to come up with more and more things to propagate. And this is the last pillar, again, family values. So what do? They try to diverse attention of Russian people from what's happening in Ukraine as much as they can. And they start, sounding alarm, saying, we under threat, we are at war. But this war is different. This war is the war of ideologies. The West and the Americans, they want to destroy family values. This is the holy thing that us Russians have. We're the beacon of light to the whole world. We're the last pillar, and they wanted to get destroyed. We must stand up. We must rise up. They start pumping this agenda. They start pumping this thing up, and they create a new law. New law that forbids spreading, sharing any kind of information that can lead to formation of acceptance of LGBT ideology. Now, that's really strange. I did my last stream on Saturday. It's called Turncoat, How Russian Politicians Change Their Shoes on the Go. Go ahead and watch it, because this right here is once more a turncoat. Once more, they change shoes on the go. Because back in 2012, during one of those huge international meetings when Americans and American reporters were allowed to come to St. Petersburg, to Russia, and actually ask Vladimir Putin uncensored questions live, and one of the reporters asked him about this, why Russia has this new law that forbids LGBT, and he said, oh, wait a second, we do not forbid it. We do not touch it. We simply don't want minors under age of 18 be exposed to persuasion, advertisement, or propaganda. But he said, in his own words, he said, how is this possible that we, ban LGBT here in Russia, because some of my friends are members of LGBT community. That interview is still out there. You can watch it with your own eyes. So back then, he has friends who are members of LGBT community, and now they make a new law that clearly states that spreading, sharing any kind of information that can lead to acceptance or formation of a good image of LGBT is illegal in Russia, okay? Nonsense. Changing shoes of level 99. God mode, you know what I mean? Russian top politician, his last name is Volodin, the speaker of the parliament, Russian parliament, I quote, he said, "This decision will protect our children and future of our country from the darkness that is being spread by the USA and Europe. We have our own values, meaning we must protect it. So, again, this decision will protect our children, the future of our country, from the darkness that is being spread by the USA and Europe. You know what? Last time I was in Europe, last time I was in the USA, I didn't see any darkness. I saw lots of compassion. I saw fantastically friendly people. I saw nice countries. I saw not just technological advancement, but I think the biggest advancements of the United States and Europe are social systems, living standards, where most people live good lives. They're happy. They're satisfied. I didn't see any darkness. That is... Oh, further explanation of this new law. Public acceptance and forming attractiveness of untraditional sexual relations, that's what they mean by LGBT, untraditional sexual relations, is dangerous not only for the children, but youth, but for the entire society, meaning the adults in general, because it puts risk of demographic and economic development of Russia. It puts risk to demographic and economic development of Russia. Really? I mean, really? Untraditional sexual relations put risk Russian demography and Russian economic development, they put that at risk. Let me tell you what puts that at risk. When you attack your neighbor, when you mobilize over 300,000 young men and send it to Ukraine to be slaughtered, to kill Ukrainians, to get killed. When young men die or come back home crippled, when over 2 million people flee Russia to avoid that, that's what the threat to demographic future of Russian Federation. When you attack the country, when you start bombing it with rockets, and every strike costing hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars. And when you spend more than or around half of your budget to military purposes, that is what puts Russia's economic development at risk. When you take away last freedoms from people and businesses, that what puts economic development at risk, but not untraditional sexual relations. Far from it. You know what they're doing now? They passed this law. It's a law in Russia. And they're hyping the information about it. They taking attention of Russians away from very important issues. The most important, life-threatening issues of all Russians. And they focus their attention to these things, okay? Banning of spreading any kind of information that can lead to formation of acceptance of untraditional sexual relations. My God. You know what they're doing now? They're getting rid of the books by Bulgakov, Gorky, Sholokhov, Nabokov, Victor Hugo, the greatest French writer, Homer, the famous ancient Greek writer, you know. They are simply removing the books because those classical writers that have contributed so much to the art, to the human history, they're not accepted in Russia according to this new law. Literally, the libraries are removing up to 50% of their books just to be safe. Fahrenheit 451 is on in Russia. You know what, in my mind, traditional family values are? Righteousness. A family where members want to be happy and want others to be happy. Family where males don't take arms and go and kill their neighbors and grab the land, but are friends with the neighbors. Families that form happy communities. Communities where everyone helps everyone, but not out to go and destroy the neighbors. That, in my mind, what is a family value. And family value comes from the very bottom. But what is happening now, they're trying to force it from the very top. But you know what? It shouldn't come as a surprise to us Russians, because nowadays everything comes from the top. Okay? There's nothing that comes from the bottom. And Russian government is absolutely right. Family values is the last pillar. And I think this last pillar has fallen, because it's also is being forced upon us from the very top by people who think they know better than us. And this has been my message. Thank you so very much for coming. Thank you for listening, watching, and I hope you liked it. Before I turn on the comments, I would like to ask you a favor. Actually, two favors. Would you please spread this message in the social networks and your social media accounts so more people will see and hear it? And please join my Telegram channel called Inside Konstantin's Russia. The description will be below after the end of the stream. I plan on doing 2 live streams showing behind the scenes of my work in creating YouTube channel, so should be interesting. I also use the Telegram channel for announcements, so please go ahead and sign up. Thank you so very much. Turning on the comments as usual. I would love to hear your feedback, your questions, your comments. Thank you so very much. Hope everyone is having a great Sunday. Snowed here in Tashkent today. Yeah, nice and warm Tashkent. Snowed.